Good morning, teachers. I want to just take a minute to go over the digital citizenship information as well as digital footprint. And I've got two parts of the digital citizenship information I share with you. The first part is the part from ISTE, which presents 9 key elements on how to best use technology in every school, home, and community. And ISTE organizes their digital citizenship information into 3 primary categories, the first of which has to do with equity. And it really is the primary and the most important of these, which is we have to ensure that all citizens in the United States have equal access to technology, and that's far from the truth today. I used to share an article with students from the New York Times which equated technology with electricity. And what happened in the 1960s is the government intervened with electric companies to provide electricity, especially in rural populations. For example, in Vermont, what the government had to do with power companies is they had to say, hey, we know you're never going to recoup the money that you're going to spend running that power line down that half-mile driveway to that one home in rural Vermont, but you're going to do it because it's a necessity and we're allowing you to operate as a monopoly, and therefore you're going to essentially do it. And the article makes the argument that we need to do that today because we don't have access everywhere in this country. I've had students in my classes recently, as last year, who do not have access to reliable internet service. And it's not just that it's accessible, that the access is tied to cost. Yeah, it may be there, but it's so, it's in rural communities, poor, impoverished communities in eastern Kentucky, for example, who they can't afford the expensive broadband that is being offered. And so our government has to intervene on behalf of our citizens to ensure that there's equal access, because technology, broadband internet is a necessity today. And it's not even that. You go and Google the cost of high-speed internet as well as the speed of high-speed internet around the world, and you'll find that if we're breaking the top 10 in the speed, we're in the latter part of it, and the same with our cost. Our speed is slower and our cost is higher than other places in the world, and we need to change that. Second one has to do with etiquette. We used to call this net etiquette or net etiquette. Net etiquette, and just need to teach, people act on the internet like they do when they're in their cars. You see people in their cars and you cut in front of them, and well, today they may actually shoot you, but I was going to say they do everything but shoot you, but they cuss you, they flip you off, they give you the finger, all of that stuff, ways that they would never act if they were standing next to you in public. There's sort of this bubble of anonymity that they feel in their cars, and the same is true online. You don't need to go any further than Twitter to see this behavior, and we need to teach students the proper etiquette and proper behavior online. Digital law, critical that users understand laws as it relates to copyright. Kids are still pirating, stealing music, not like they were in the 90s, because streaming platforms like Spotify, which again, and that's a whole nother can of worms as it relates to artists and their rights being respected by platforms like Spotify, but because of Spotify, they're not pirating as much music as although they do. But pirating images, pirating videos, I think videos in particular are much more prominent today, and we need to teach kids about that. Digital communication. So many communication options available. Users need to learn how to make appropriate decisions. This really connects to 21st century literacies. But also just, this is also something as simple as, not sending a text message to tell your girlfriend that, or your fiance that you're breaking up with her or him. So just and two, I had a student who did a lesson on this, how to send an email. So kids are so used to texting. My son's a perfect example. When he texts his professors, he's sort of just like he was texting one of his, or emailing, when he's emailing one of his professors, it's like he's texting a friend, making sure that you have capitals, proper punctuation, but two, that you thank them, and that you start with good afternoon, how are you doing? Or good afternoon, Professor Smith. So just teaching them those skills. And this is more connected to the 21st century literacies. Obviously, digital literacies. We've already talked about that, so I won't go into that. Digital commerce. This is very interesting. Users make more purchases online. They have to understand how to be effective consumers. Heard a great story on NPR News about a guy who was selling cat rugs, of all things, and he was selling those on Amazon, and just understanding. So one is just understanding that Amazon is a platform for selling information or selling things. They do not vet what is being sold on there per se, and they do so only to the degree that they can. I'll give you two examples. One was the cat rugs, and so this guy was selling cat rugs on Amazon, and this article was about how consumers don't really look beyond. They're not very savvy consumers online, and so what was happening was he'd invented these cat rugs. They were play rugs that cats could hide under and things, and he was selling them online. Well, another person was selling his rugs on eBay, and what was happening was the person on eBay was selling the rugs for $25. I'm sorry, the person on eBay was selling the rugs for $45. The guy on Amazon was selling the rugs that he had invented for $35. Well, people weren't looking. Like I said, they just found the rug. Oh, I like it. They didn't look to see if the rug was being sold anywhere else. They just clicked on it and they bought it. Well, what happened was when they clicked on that link, it actually, on eBay, to buy the $45 cat rug, it actually purchased the rug from the guy on Amazon for $35, and it was mailed out to the person who purchased it. Guy on eBay made $10 off each rug he sold, and the guy who invented them realized one month he had like $6,000 in returns because he had free returns. And what was happening was people were getting their rugs that they bought on eBay, and they were realizing that when they got the box from Amazon, they were like, hey, I bought this from eBay. So they went to Amazon and looked, and they saw, hey, I could save $10. So they were returning it and repurchasing it. Completely legal. Another example, so we have to be better consumers and teach people about consuming online and looking, in that regard. Another example for Amazon, again, nothing is vetted on there. So the other story that I heard again on NPR was about people buying car seats, and I can't remember what the name. It was the best car seats for children available, but these were forgeries that were made in China, and they were not safe. They were the best car seats because they had the highest safety ratings. Well, these were just cheap knockoffs, with the name on them that were forged in China. Amazon keeps continuing to remove them each day, but each day they pop up, they just come under another name, and it takes them a while. But in the meantime, people have bought them. So there are a couple of examples of digital commerce. Digital rights and responsibilities, inform people of their basic digital rights, freedom of speech, etc. online. Won't go too far down that. Digital safety and security. This could be anything from carpal tunnel syndrome to strain on your eyes to stress related to NTI. Security, of course, has to do with sharing your information, putting pictures of children on there. A lot of a lot connected to that. Digital health and wellness. I'm sorry, I got kind of got into that on this one. I'm sorry. So the digital safety is more about privacy, what you should share, what you shouldn't share on information. And this is a big issue because of cookies and the fact that you can't access anything because unless you enable cookies. Of course, we're seeing that change a great deal now. Essentially in the past, it's, unless you enabled cookies, you couldn't see the content. Now we're getting little pop-up boxes that say we accept it. We need to get rid of the cookies completely. You know, of course, the cookies are what allows you to look at shoes online, and then, you know, the next day you have cookies, or I'm sorry, you have shoes popping up on every site that you go to, every social media. So we need to address that. Again, I'll tell you just a quick story about this. So, and I've shared, it's actually in the podcast about mobile phones and how they're used to track you. The story was about a man who went to Target to complain because they were sending coupons for pregnancy stuff to his teenage daughter. He was complaining to the manager about why, you know, is his daughter getting this information. And what happened was the daughter was actually pregnant and hadn't told the father, and had gone to Target to buy some prenatal vitamins. And what Target does is, as soon as you make that purchase, they record that information, and they start pushing you information about buying maternity clothes, or buying children's clothing, or buying formula, or car seats. And so the father found out later you know, that the daughter was pregnant, and realized what had happened. So just an example of that. Just talked about digital wellness, as far as I said, everything from carpal tunnel to eye strain to stresses related to being online all day with non-traditional instruction. So a lot connected to that. Common Sense Media also has theirs. I'm not going to go through these, but you can see those there. Final digital footprint is just realizing that everything that we put online stays online. Okay, that means if you text an image, it is there. Even though you delete that image, you delete the text. Okay, if you've shared it, if it's gone through the Wi-Fi, then it is still there somewhere. Okay, the same way with your email, or whatever you put on your social media, or whatever you tweet. You may have deleted it, but it's gone. And it's only a matter of time before someone comes up with some app that will allow you to see who's been looking at your Facebook page. So beware. And I'll just give you a quick little example of that. So if we go to, got it down here somewhere. If we go to the Wayback Machine, this is just one tool. And what we can do is we can put any URL in the Wayback Machine. So let's just put bellarmine.edu. We can put any URL in the Wayback Machine, and it will pull up a timeline of that website. And you will be able to look at what that website looked like at that particular point in time. So the 2002 Bellarmine website has long been taken down, but we can go and see in March of 29, because, you know, search engines like Google or Dogpile before Google or whatever, they're constantly sending out little spy bots, little bots that are going through the internet and going onto servers and taking snapshots of websites. And that's what you're accessing. That's what this is. This is when they visited Bellarmine's site, March 29, 2002. This is what it looks like. This is the snapshot it took. And all of the links on this website are operable. They are accessible, and they do function. So just given it a section here. I think I clicked on it. I'm sure I did. It may just take a second to come up, since it's, and notice it goes all the way back to 1996. Of course, it's not going to work for me. It's just kind of spinning. Oh, I see here. That should come up. Here, it's spinning up here. I'm sorry. No, that's just not good. Cancel that. So here comes the web page. Okay, so this is what the web page looked like at this particular time. This is what Bellarmine's web page looked like in 2002. But you get the idea. The other thing is, if we go to Google, and we search for something, there's Dr. McGowan. Oh, gosh, that was a young Dr. McGowan. I'm sorry, I don't know why I just clicked on that. If we go to Google and we Google something like Martin Luther King Jr., and let's say that we click on this link and it doesn't come up, and that all seems like it always happens. You know, you click on something, you get the little dinosaur, right, that pops up, and out in the desert with the cactus, it says that this, you know, it couldn't find the site. Of course, you know, if you hit the space bar, that dinosaur will start running, and you can play a game with him where you jump over the cacti. But nonetheless, if that website doesn't come up, if you will just hit this little drop down box right here, Okay, these are active, but if you'll just hit the little drop down, see where it says cache right there? If you click on that cache, it will pull up that website. Even though they may have taken it down, it will pull it up and you will be able to see that website, and you will be able to, all the links again will be functional. So just a couple of examples of how that digital footprint is always there. It never leaves, even though it may be taken down.